of Cagliostro is one question. Why Count Cagliostro wanted the marriage and the ring? I mean, like I told you in the previous lecture, the motive behind the actions of Lupin in the Castle of Cagliostro is not quite clear. Uncover the mystery of Gothic bills? I don't think so. Saving Clarice? Then why did he show his interest in the original bills in the last scene? Clarice's behavior also seems a little unreasonable. If she just didn't want to marry a guy she doesn't like, she could have just walked out from her convent with an undoubtedly lower security level. She didn't have to wait for the Count to take her to his castle only to steal the car and flee. If she wanted to make Cagliostro, the country, a better place, she could have just married the Count and waited for her time to come. Maybe not while the Count is alive, but maybe in their children's time. The Count will die before her for sure. When that time comes, maybe she can start a coup to make a fresh start for the country. So, actually, Lupin, the protagonist, as well as Clarice, their behaviors kind of lack reasonable context. In this film, the Count Cagliostro is the only one with a clear and explicit goal. We can actually see where Count Cagliostro is going. For example, in a relatively well-known scene in the A part, after Lupin sneaks in, in the B part, in a scene after he sneaks into the castle, the Count holds Clarice's face in his hand. The Count, grabbing Clarice, who tried to escape and failed, says, "My hands are stained in blood," in response to her condemning him as a murderer. "Murderer, you're not human," she says, and the Count harshly responds, saying, "Yes, my hands are stained in blood. My family is the shadow of yours. With conspiracy and murder, we have sustained generations of archdukes. Don't pretend you don't know." And then he shows a gentle side, saying, "Clarice, for 400 long years the light and shadow have been apart, but now our two families unite," in maybe a rather indecent tone. Then Count Cagliostro pressures her again, saying something like, "Our two rings together, they will restore our ancestors' hidden treasure." This is where we clearly see what the Count is up to. Those lines reveal his obvious goals: unification of the Cagliostro families that have been separated in two, and finding the family treasure. But we kind of feel that there is something more. Lupin sees what it is and points it out to him. When Lupin makes his first intrusion, when he was attacked by a group of hitmen by the name of Shadow with fingers like claws, Lupin leaves a message card on the back of Judo, who is later revealed to be one of them. When ordered by the Count, Judo nervously reads the death threat, saying, "To the Count of Lust and Greed, I will have your bride." Hearing this, the Count simply sneers like he just doesn't care. What did he mean by lust and greed? Lust is obviously a sexual desire, and this greed means appetite for power. So lust and greed, it means you want the girl and you want the power. The death threat points out the Count's hidden desire, the affection, emotion, and feelings toward Clarice. But the Count didn't care. This is because, at this point, Clarice is not the subject of his affection. This is why he locked her in a convent until their marriage. If he loves her, there is no way he will keep her there until the ceremony. It would be so easy for him to keep her around him. It should not be hard for him, a man of such talent, to say anything that would make a 10-year-old girl obey him. He can just so easily keep a good relationship with her for about 5 years, or maybe 10. Instead, he put her into the convent and didn't show a sign of interest. This is because he actually did not care about her and had no interest in her. Still, despite such a fact we know, Lupin makes a questionable remark in a scene rather close to the ending where he attempts to rescue Clarice. Lupin, disguised as an archbishop, sneaks into the wedding ceremony and makes a surprise move to steal the bride and the ring at the same time. Then, after a big happy grin in response to Clarice hugging him, saying, "Mr. Lupin!" He says, "Calm down, you cradle robber. Don't blow up," after unveiling the fireworks beneath his robe. Then the story comes to the climax scene. His words, "Calm down, you cradle robber." It's another attempt to make fun of the feelings of Count Cagliostro toward Clarice. However, this is actually not quite obvious as well. So I guess we can see that Count Cagliostro, the only one with a clear agenda in the film, wants the three things I will mention. Yes, the goals that are the obvious ones. We will look into his ulterior motives behind the obvious ones. The first one, unification of the Cagliostro families. Yes, the vengeance of the Count family who had to take the dirty work. The second one, hidden treasure. Actually, the Count has no idea what the hidden treasure is, but he believes it has to be huge. And the final one, love for Clarice. This is what he has at a subconscious level, so he gets pissed when it's pointed out. That's what many fans believe. Let's go into detail about these one by one. First of all, unification of the Cagliostro families. The vengeance from the Count forced to work under the Archdukes. Actually, this kind of plot is not unique to Cagliostro, and Miyazaki used this a lot in his works. For example, in Future Boy Conan, Lepka, the primary antagonist, wants to use solar power to rule over the world. And that's why he has to capture Lana, the granddaughter of Dr. Lau, quite a similar plot. In Laputa, Castle in the Sky, Muska wants to rule the world with the power of Laputa, but he was from a relatively minor branch of Laputa, so he wanted Shita from the head family of Laputa. Now the resemblance is uncanny. In this context, the Count seems like another typical bad guy in Miyazaki films. However, Lepka wanted Lana to obtain the secret of solar power. Shita, she had her volusite crystal she inherited. But why Clarice? The ring is all she can offer, making the reason to chase her vaguer than the other two. Besides, why does the Count want to unite the family in the first place? With their gothic bills, the Cagliostro family already ruled the underground society. What more did he want? Why did he have to unite the Count and the Archduke, the shadow and the light? The film does not quite give us the answer. In fact, I think the answer is hidden in the amazing map with default settings I showed you in the previous lecture. So this is the default setting map. Excuse me. You see this? It's written Upper Cagliostro and Lower Cagliostro in tiny letters. So the Cagliostro was divided into upper and lower classes, and not into archdukes and counts. You see this in Laputa too. Of the people in the flowing city, people ranked as priests were waiting for their gods to return. On the other hand, the lower class people wanted to rule the earth using the power of Laputa. Miyazaki is interested in this theme. The difference between social classes, with the upper and lower classes having different objectives. There was the line characterizing the Count. With conspiracy and murder, we have sustained generations of archdukes. This clearly states that the family of Count Cagliostro was not originally in charge of making counterfeit bills. So the Count's family, the lower Cagliostro, was not very much involved in the counterfeiting and was actually in charge of conspiracy and murder. And I anticipate that the upper Cagliostro, the archdukes, were in charge of counterfeiting. To explain this, I'll give you a description of the currency back in the days. So this image sequence starts when Lupin and Zenigata finally escape from the dungeon and find the printers. Lupin explains after telling Zenigata, who wants answers, that they're in a production site for the counterfeit bills. The story goes like this. They've lurked in the shadows of Europe ever since the Middle Ages. They ruined the Bourbon kings and funded Napoleon. They even brought about the Great Crash of 1927. A black hole on the dark side of history. Many have tried to find its source and no one has ever come back. Lupin says it with his dramatic tone. So you see from this description, the cagliostro were actually printing the bills for only 100 years. Bills, the paper money, started to be used in the 19th century in Europe. There is a British gold coin known as the sovereign. As you know, the pirates, like those in the Pirates of the Caribbean, they all have gold coins. Generally, those are either Spanish gold coins or the British sovereign. The sovereign was issued in England in the 19th century. Since large amounts of gold coins are too heavy to carry around, banknotes were issued by banks, who guaranteed that the notes could be converted back to the corresponding amount. This is known as convertible banknotes. The convertible banknote, the banknotes issued in England in the 19th century, is the original of the bills we use today, such as 1,000, 5,000, and 10,000 yen bills. That's why this image shows the early cagliostro actually making counterfeit coins. Next image. This shows the medieval period, the French Revolution. This is a caricature of the age drawn by Miyazaki. You see Napoleon with the globe with the fuse. This indicates that Napoleon was trying to conquer the world. But there was a time limit. You see the fuse is lit. He has to hurry. So Napoleon was trying his best to conquer the world. He cannot waste his time. Why? Because this sack of money he carries, it has a hole, meaning that he is almost broke. With this single caricature depicting that time, Miyazaki indicates that Napoleon was facing a major financial crisis, and that the Grand Duchy of Cagliostro, ruled by the Cagliostro family, was backing him up. About ruining the Bourbon kings, there was an incident known as the Affair of the Diamond Necklace. Actually, in this affair, Marie Antoinette herself did not purchase the necklace. Her friend, her best friend, some madam, purchased or attempted to purchase this absurdly expensive necklace, a diamond necklace that would have cost about 400 billion yen in 2018. Marie Antoinette was set up as a guarantor for the deal, the position she denied when she found out. Anyway, this led to a huge scandal in France, with people making up rumors about a lesbian relationship between the queen and madam. It was taken to court, but the absolute bad guys who actually tried to frame Marie walked out free of charge, directing the wrath of Parisians towards the queen. This is known to be one of the factors that triggered the French Revolution. In this affair, there was an occultist named Cagliostro who actually tried to sell the way overpriced jewelry to Marie, so the name Cagliostro actually appears in history. The Cagliostro was actually not a count, but he called himself one. He was an alchemist and a member of the Freemasons. There are historical facts about him, and the guy was not actually a count. There was a man who did research to find out that Cagliostro was just a countryman from Sicily, Italy. That man was a great German writer, politician, and thinker at that time. His name was Goethe. Goethe got angry about Cagliostro and decided to reveal who that guy actually was. So he took a personal trip to Italy and published a book about it titled Italian Journey, where he claims that he has finally found out the truth about Cagliostro. So you see how huge the scandal caused by Cagliostro was. As mentioned above, he was an alchemist and a member of the Freemasons. So Miyazaki used the name the Count Cagliostro in this movie. Let's keep in mind that he was an alchemist. This previous image, this depicts Germany's 30 Years' War. You see the war going on in the background. This German 30 Years' War is known as the last and the largest religious war that broke out between the Protestants and the Catholics in the 17th century. With that in the background, some bankers or lenders are assessing money. Any kind of money and coin, including the British sovereign back in this time, did not indicate any numerical value such as a dollar or a pound. They had to weigh the coins one by one and measure the specific weight to determine the content of gold, which defines the value of the coin. So engraving values on the coins was nothing more than formality. And here you see the transaction of that. That's what that money was in this age. And then this image transitions to, here we go, this image. German soldiers are finding a huge amount of German mark bills, which should be fake, in a carriage of a crashed Royal Air Force, aircraft. This insinuates that Cagliostro may have also helped the Alliance win World War II. This depicts that their counterfeit business became major enough to even team up with the British government. Okay, let's return to the castle of Cagliostro. These details clearly tell us that the Cagliostro family introduced printing to their counterfeiting only after the beginning of the 20th century. This means that logically, they had to have spent most of their time, that is from the 16th to the 19th century, making counterfeit coins. If not, it does not make sense. There was a printing room in the castle. The printing room was made in the same building where all the conspiracies and killings took place as the specialized business of the Lower Cagliostro. This can only mean that the printing started in the castle of the Count Cagliostro. Where were the counterfeit coins made? You cannot get an answer from the movie, but I imagine that it should have been in the jurisdiction of the Upper Cagliostro, the Archdukes. It's more like my imagination, but it's the only logical explanation. The Cagliostro back in the days, the Upper Cagliostro and the Lower Cagliostro, were in charge of different agendas. The Upper Cagliostro was in charge of making counterfeit coins and politics, which means making marital relations with other countries in Europe through marriage. Meanwhile, the Lower Cagliostro, the Count, was in charge of conspiracy and murder. These are the basic statuses of the Upper Cagliostro and the Lower Cagliostro. The actual Cagliostro in history was an alchemist, an occultist trying to make gold from less valuable metals such as copper and lead. I think Miyazaki translated this image into a group of people manipulating the value of the coins they issued, and used the name Cagliostro and counterfeiting as their background. If they were counterfeiting bills from the start, the story of the history of the Cagliostro family could have just started from the 19th century. The year 1517 was designated, clearly indicating that they were in the coin counterfeiting business.